World of Wells. Shorter clips.
Here we are in a scene that probably hasn't changed much since Abraham was here 4,000 years ago. Arid desert, rainfall in inches per year. Water was so desperately needed by what was basically a nomadic culture. Sheep needed water, people needed water. Water was the most important thing in everybody's life. Existing was a day-to-day adventure. We're talking 700 years before Latin was formed, 3,000 years before Columbus, 4,000 years before electricity. What these people had to experience and deal with, people today cannot understand. It's why developing a water well, a secure source of water, was so important to the entire culture. It's why cities developed around water wells, why it was the center of activity and discussion in every community at that time. How would they go about finding water in those times? It was important to find the right location, have the right techniques, and have the right instincts, because a well may take, if not years, decades, some even generations to develop. It was so important that they had an idea of where they might put the well. Technique back then, they might actually get on their hands and knees and look across the desert. When they knew there was a humid area above the ground, they knew there might be water close to the soil surface. So they looked for distortions across the earth and see if there was an area that they could detect the humid air coming off the ground. They would also, of course, look for plants that like water. Cottonwoods, willows, oak trees. All these plants love water. If they had plants like that in an area, they knew there's a good chance there's probably water close to the surface. They would look for an area that was a valley. The water would run off the mountains, come down the hillside, fill up the valleys with water, create shallow aquifers. It was important to find the water as easily and quickly as possible back at that time because it was so labor intensive. So even though these people were efficient at finding water, they didn't understand the science behind it. And what they saw, they just experienced and used that in finding water in another well. But what they were actually discovering was what we know today as hydrogeology. The hydrogeology is based on 3 zones in the earth on groundwater. You have your vadose zone, which is the dry zone. So if you dig a hole in your ground and it's dry, that's the vadose zone. But when you start to dig deeper, you'll discover the capillary fringe. What the capillary fringe is very similar if you were to put a piece of paper into a bowl of water. The water would travel up that piece of paper in the small spaces and tubes in that paper. Well, the same thing happens under earth. Once they found that capillary fringe, they knew they were getting close to water. They knew to continue digging because they knew what was below that was the actual water table or the phradic zone. And the phradic zone is the area where all the spaces in the soil, in the sand, is filled with water. That's the saturated zone, the phradic zone. And that's what they were looking for. Anytime they hit that, they were at the top of the water table. They would keep digging into that until there was enough water coming back through the phradic zone pore spaces to fill the well as they were digging it. And that would establish their water supply for generations.